Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel TV official YouTube channel just had a live stream showing off a show match including the voice actor for Yugioh, during which we got to see some brand new cards played, following which they actually showed us most of the two new mini boxes that we're going to be getting and the entirety of both of these structure decks. So we actually have a ton of new information for you and we're going to go through all of the new cards that they showed off. So first things first, we'll take a look at the Transam Universe structure deck, and huge thanks to Bradaz HD, who has really quickly, this has only just happened, managed to get this up on Duel Links meta, so that man is definitely doing the Lord's work. But first things first, we have a new boss monster in Greystorm Reverie, and quite a few people did predict we might be getting this card because of the wording on one of the skills. But I didn't want to list just like every different Galaxy boss monster in our predictions, which is why we didn't specifically mention this, but this is a pretty cool card. First off, 2500 attack is a really good stat line. We can send one other card from our field to the graveyard, so quite expensive, but it will gain 500 attack until the end of the turn, so it goes up to 3000 attack. And then if no spell traps are on the field, this card can make up to 2 attacks on monsters this turn. So has to be on the field, not our field, so we have to pop our opponent's back row as well to make this work, but again, the skill that would work quite well with this does get us a Universe Storm to hand, which can pop on our opponent's back row, which does help us get to this card's effect. Being able to attack twice with a 3000 attack monster is pretty good. It's reasonably strong for a Galaxy boss monster, so definitely worth including, and we'll definitely see if we can cook something up with this at a later date. Next up we have Transam Linak, just the 1600 beta, we already know about this card. Next up we have Cosmo Predictor, so level 2, 600 attack. If we have no other monsters on our field during the turn that we summon this card, we can add a level 8 Galaxy-type monster from our graveyard to our hand. Now, notably, we cannot add Galactica Oblivion, because that is a level 7. We won't be able to add Milky Wave Neo, because that's a level 7. We can, however, grab back the Greystorm Reverie, so this will specifically work with that for now. And this turn, this card can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Greystorm Reverie in attack position. So obviously very apparent we want to use this, get back Reverie, tribute it out, and get it out at a discount. It basically gets a free +1, and then also sort of acts as another +1, because we can use this as 2 tributes, so we're basically saving a card. So that's really good. The value we get from this little combo is insane, and this could be really strong going forward. Then we have Star Tri-Leo, only 300 attack, but a nice 1300 defense. If we have no other monsters on our field during the turn, we know summon this card, so again, these are kind of going to clash a little bit. But we can excavate the top 3 cards of our deck and send all Galaxy-type monsters to the graveyard, then place the remaining cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is just basically to fuel the graveyard, so ideally we'd summon this to get the Reverie into the graveyard, then use Predictor to get it back. That's kind of the general theme here, but Star Tri-Leo, obviously we don't want to leave a 300 attack body, so we don't really want to do this, we can tribute it off. Then we have Rightful Magic. This came out in the Rider Cross structure. It's realistically not that great, but you never know. We already knew about Ozone Layer, and then we have Sora-Puyo. Sora-Puyo is quite a cool card. If we have 10 or more cards in our graveyard, we can draw 1 card, then send 1 card from our hand to the graveyard. Now this acts like Future Diviner rather than something like Craft the Drone, because this lets us draw the card first and then discard, whereas those other cards force us to discard the card first, and obviously it has to be specifically like a machine monster or a spellcaster, depending on which one we're using. This can send any card to the graveyard, so it is stronger than those cards, although it does have the same stat line. Then we have Silver Safer, just a 2000 level 6, nothing too impressive about this card. We already know about Galactic Force, we already know about Neo, and then we have Strange Wall, which is fine, right? A 500 attack loss, probably isn't really going to do anything, probably isn't going to see any play, but it's nice that it's here. And then we just have some more vanillas, nothing really interesting to say about those. But overall, actually not bad. I think a lot of people were really hoping we were going to get Reverie, and getting Predictor on top of that is just really nice. Realistically, these are going to be the 2 chase cards. I do think that Sora-Puyo is like okay, but I do think this box is really realistically, if you want to play like Galaxy, you're going to be chasing Transam Linak anyway, especially if this is the only way to get it. So this is kind of a 3 of mandatory if you want to play like Galaxy, really, but especially if you want to play the Reverie deck, then we can easily get 3 of this deck and get 3 copies of each of these and have quite a formidable deck. Next up, we have Hero Stage, and this was the other structure deck, and there's not really much to talk about in here. We kind of already knew about all these. We already knew about Wingman, we knew about Tantalum, we knew about Argent, we knew about pretty much all of this. There's, again, not really much to say about this. It's nice. We're getting 2 copies of Fusion in here, so just buy 2 of this. We're going to have 4 copies of Fusion immediately. We, for some reason, have Flame Champion in here. I guess that's neat. Yeah, not really much to say about this. And then we move on to our first structure deck, this being Revolution Fusion. Now, notably, I mean, it does also say here, but they only showed kind of one screen of it, so they didn't scroll down to show the rest of the box, which means there'll be a bunch of N rarity cards that we don't know. But this is everything they showed off, and again, it's only N rarity cards we don't know, so this is going to be the real meat. But first off, Cyber End, we already knew about that. We knew we were going to get a Shura Star. I mean, we didn't know we were going to get a Shura Star, but it was heavily implied that we were going to get a Shura Star, and a lot of the other fusions as well. We knew we were getting Paladins, and we knew we were getting Dragia Star. What we didn't know, Cyber Twin Dragon is coming. So this is going to be the Cyber Dragon fusion of choice other than the Cyber End. I think I would have preferred, to be honest, to see Cyber Rush. I think Rush is more flavorful, but I suppose if you're trying to get the speed players in, Cyber Twin does make more sense. It is very, very powerful, 2800 attack that can attack twice. The only negative of this card is that it's level 8, so it doesn't have that soft protection that level 9s have. But attacking twice is really good, and 2800 attack is quite a lot. The only real downside is now when they do release Cyber Rush, unless they give it a specific skill, Cyber Twin is almost always the go-to anyway. People would very rarely go into Rush unless they were in a very specific situation. Typically, Twin is just better. So, but it is cool, and it is over Rush rare, so it does look very nice. Then we have Imaginary React. We did already know we were getting this card, but again, very, very powerful, very, very modern. Then Cyber Search Dragon. So Cyber Search Dragon does make sense. We're going to be getting 2 Cyber Assault. We're going to have the Cyber Search. We have now got the Cyber Twin. Spoiler alert, this is pretty much the only Cyber Dragon support we're getting. The Cyber Search is okay. You contribute summon this card in attack position by attributing a face-up Cyber Dragon. During your main phase, this card was normal or special summoned. We can place 1 card from our hand on the top of the deck to special summon a Cyber Dragon from our graveyard. Now, notably, in the graveyard, nothing changes its name to be Cyber Dragon, so it has to be a actual Cyber Dragon. This is fine. We contribute like 1 Cyber Dragon or a Proto Cyber Dragon, summon this out, ideally use its effect. We do lose a card from our hand to get back a Cyber Dragon from the graveyard, but we get to cheek out a 21, and that 21 could also be fused into stuff. It's okay. It's nothing like super crazy. It does have that 2400 stat line as well, so it will work with the skill. But again, 24 during your opponent's turn is quite easy to get beaten over, so we'll have to see how this goes. I think the Cyber Dragon deck could be reasonably strong, but the thing that's holding it back is that we don't have a lot of its support cards, because those cards are generic and thus would buff light machines as well. So we'll have to see how that actually goes. Then there's Ether Fast Striker, we already knew about this card. Then Metarian Vitristar, we've already spoken about this card at length, but now we have it confirmed that we're getting it. We then have Necroman III. So this doesn't actually show them at the moment, this will probably get updated before this video comes out. But Necroman III is actually limit 3, it was showed off on the stream. So this card immediately caught my attention as being one of the only limited cards in the box. But when we normal summon this card this turn, and your opponent has a face-up level 7 or higher monster on their field, we can special summon a level 3 normal monster from your graveyard face up to your field. So this is a zombie monster, so this is obviously meant to be used in specifically zombie deck, right? But this card is really, really cool because there's a lot you can do with it, right? First off, it's just a free body, so we can just use this as 1 card tribute to, like a Seahorse Carrier, for example, right? But we can also use this to get back fusion material. So as an example, we could get back Swordsman of Roadstar, but we could also get back some elemental heroes, because Burstinatrix and Avian are both level 3. So we could bring one of those back and then just have it as a free fusion material from the graveyard. So this card has a lot of potential. Any deck that uses level 3 normal monsters will be able to make somewhat use of this. And obviously Konami knows this because they slapped the limit 3 on it. So it'll be interesting to see if we can cook anything up with this card, but I would definitely keep my eye on it for sure. Then there's Ether Finder, we already know about this card. And then we get the Star Dragon. So level 7, 2500 attack, so already pretty good. Send the top card of your deck to the graveyard. Okay, again, we're not losing a card from our hand, so pretty good. This card loses 500 attack until the end of this turn. So that's not good. We don't want to go down to 2000 attack. But then you can make 1 face-up monster on your opponent's field lose 1000 attack until the end of this turn. So that is actually really strong. This basically lets it beat fusion monsters, and it will let it beat, I guess, things it's tied with. But like, for example, this won't beat a Blue Eyes White Dragon, right? We'll lose 500 and go down to 2000. Blue Eyes would lose 1000 and go down to 2000 as well, and then we could crash. So we're not going to beat the tie, but anything that's a little bit higher than us, but not 500 higher than us, we can now beat with this card. So it's okay. I don't know how to rate this card yet. I think I really want to get my hands on it and test it in this meta to see how it feels, but I think there is some potential here. Then there's Starry Start, we already knew we were getting, and then there's Ether Seeker, which we already knew we were getting. So we're going to skip over Bubble Manx, we've already spoken about that, but then we have Crescent Moon Swordmaster. So this is a warrior fusion, not a Celestial Warrior, or whatever we're going to be renaming Celestial Warriors to. This is an actual warrior. Level 8, again, so it doesn't have that fusion protection. It's made using Masaki the Legendary Samurai and Hero of the Yeast. We can send the top card of a deck to the graveyard. This turn, this card cannot be destroyed by trap card effects. So, it's a bit plain. It's a bit boring. I think this is just to give the warrior players something to kind of tide them over until we actually get their real boss monsters in the future. It's fine. It's only a rare. We weren't expecting much from it anyway, to be honest. Then we have Imaginary Arc Turbo. Again, we've already spoken about this card. Then we have Card Restoration or Card Reprinting. This card did see a little bit of play in some very kind of suspecty decks. I don't think this card's going to see play, but if there is a gimmicky deck, like some sort of burn deck, or maybe night vision decks could play this. So, right, let's go over what the card does. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, draw until you have 5 cards in your hand and reveal all cards in your hand. So first off, this is very important, because if we draw till we have 5, you know, you might be saying, well, we're going to draw till we have 5 anyway during the next turn. But when it gets to our turn, we're going to draw an extra card. So think of this as, you will start your next turn with 6 cards in hand. That's kind of what this card says, so it is kind of a +1, if you squint. Then, if there is a monster among them, gain life points equal to the number of those monsters times 200. So you're going to gain like 600 to 1,000 life points typically. It's not going to be like a huge amount. It can matter. It can be very relevant. But Card Restoration, like I said, is a weird card that has seen some play in some very specific decks. I don't really want to go over them too much here because like some of them need cards that we're definitely not going to be getting for a very long time. The special summon stuff in defense. And we're just... The point is, there is some gimmicky stuff we can do with this card, so we'll have to keep an eye on it and see if anyone manages to break it. Then we have Fusion. This is going to be in the box, which is fine. We know we're getting 2 copies of this in the free structure, so we only need 1 more anyway. Then there's a Musi Howling Performer. We already knew we were getting this card. And then we get to Spiral Geyser. When your opponent normal summons or sets a monster from the hand, inflict 400 damage to your opponent. This turn, your opponent cannot tribute face-down monsters for a tribute summon. So I guess this will punish your opponent for setting monsters. But if you think your opponent's on Trap Hole, you'll then get punished for normal summoning them. So it puts us in a bit of a weird situation. I don't know if Geyser would see any play, but like, sort of like Tribute Lock, there will be weird strategies where you might want to incorporate this, but I think as a general card, this is not very good. Again, specific strategy, specific decks could make some use of this. Overall, I wouldn't just jam this in anything. Then we have another fusion monster, and this time it is a Spellcaster made of 2 Strange Cats, which is the 0 attack 1400 vanilla. Special summon 1 Spellcaster type normal monster from your graveyard, face up to your field. Then if you special summon Strange Cat by this effect, this card gains 1400 attack until the end of this turn. There's going to be like some gimmick decks you could maybe make with this. Realistically, I don't see a way to break this. I don't see a way to make this like really good. Then there's Treasure Dragon. This is a card I thought we were going to get a long time ago, to be honest. But if we have 4 or more dragons in our graveyard during the main phase, that we special summon this card from the graveyard. Very, very specific. We need to have a lot of monsters in the graveyard. They need to be dragons. It needs to be the turn we special summoned this card from the hand or graveyard. So we've got to work out how we're special summoning this as well. It's very awkward. But if we do jump through all of these hoops, we do get a free draw, which is okay. If we do have a way to special summon this consistently, this actually is not that bad, and getting free plussing, as we've seen, can be really, really powerful. Then we go to a trap card, Dragon's Fortitude. So this card, again, is limit 1. So I guess we can't play this with Burst Stream of Destruction. But when an opponent's monster declares an attack, the attacking monster loses attack equal to the level of 1 dragon-type monster in your graveyard times 100 until the end of this turn. So usually going to be, what, 7, maybe 8. Then shuffle that monster from your graveyard into the deck. So this lets us recycle our cards, which is okay. At this point, we already have Torero, which I guess dragons don't usually have access to. We do have Talismanic Seal Array, so it's not that impressive an effect. And a combat trick is still okay, especially since this could be a 700 or 800 combat trick, which actually might be a relevant number compared to like the 500s and the 400s we're currently working with. Then we get some more cards that we already knew we were getting, and then we get to the Wyvern. So this is a dragon monster, level 5, so we don't like that. We don't like seeing level 5 written on this. But we can send 1 spell trap from our hand to the graveyard. We also don't like seeing that. Special summon a level 6 or lower dragon-type normal monster from your graveyard face up to your field. That's also a bit bad. There's not a lot you could do with this. You could get like the dragon if you want to try and go for the fusion, but it's just really not worth it. Realistically, the Wyvern is just not a good card, and you probably shouldn't play it. And then finally, Mr. Alchemy. So, if we have no other monsters on your field, send this face-up card from your field to the graveyard to add a Strange Cat from your graveyard to your hand, then draw 1 card. So it's a +1. If you drew by this effect, you cannot attack with level 6 or lower monsters during this turn. So the whole point is this is supposed to enable our strange cats. It's realistically not going to be very good, but again, there is a gimmick here, and we will get more strange cat support in the future, so maybe revisit this when we do get more of those cards released. But overall, there is actually some quite interesting stuff in here. I think the biggest takeaways from this box specifically is going to be the Cyber Twin, it's going to be the Cyber Search, the Necroman could also potentially be really, really good. The rest of this I'm not too excited about, but we do still have one more box to go through. And then we move on to our final product, the Galactica Go Rush box. So, some stuff we already knew we were getting. We already knew we were getting Galactica Oblivion. We did already know we were getting Secret Order. We didn't know how we were going to be attaining it. Now we know it is a box UR. Then we have Bluetooth. We already knew we were getting this. And then we have Jointech Rex. Now, the first thing to actually point out is we did, again, see this on stream. So if we take a look, none of these cards are limited. We did see the limits on the other one, which does mean Jointech Rex is not limit 3 as we predicted. Neither is Secret Order. We thought this card would either be limited or we would have a limited number we could get access to, but it seems like both of these cards are going to be completely unlimited, which could be pretty crazy going forward. 3 copies of Secret Order is basically a deck on its own. It's really, really strong. And Jointech Rex might be hard to fit into some decks, but the decks that don't have a good restriction on them, just being able to pop a back row can be really good. In fact, I would actually probably play as an aggro if I wasn't jamming Secret Order and aggro, that is. But let's go over the new cards. So first up, we have Hacking Dragon, level 7, only 2300 attack, so it has to have a really good effect to make up for that attack deficit. Special summon 1 Dragon-type monster from your hand to your opponent's field in face-up defense position. Okay, that's not great. Then you can return 1 level 8 or lower attack position monster on your opponent's field to the owner's hand. So we can get rid of a level 8 or lower, but obviously this won't work on maximums, this won't work on most fusions. But we can give our opponent a guy, which, off the top of my head, like Dragia Star F can get double attack piercing. Maybe we give our opponent a low defense dragon and attack through it. Maybe that's an okay strategy, but I don't know if I could fit Hacking Dragon into that deck. It's an awkward one. There's probably something we can do with this, but off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of much, and I don't think this card ever really saw any play, like historically, so we'll just see what people come up with, I guess. Then there is Dual Corretals. So this card is a card that did see a little bit of play. It didn't see a ton of play, but it did see a little bit of play. So keep that in mind as we go through this. But a level 5, 1700 attack, that's not great. And the top card of it to the graveyard, gains 400 attack to the end of the turn. This turn, this card cannot attack directly, but it can make up to 2 attacks on monsters. So this can actually be pretty good just to use as like a Dragius, right? We just clear 2 monsters out the way, then have our big guy get in. So don't underestimate this card. Double attacking is always going to be really, really strong. This might not be good immediately, but as we get other cards that could potentially support this, it could see more play in the future. Then we have Jointech Triceratops. We're doing about this card. Eve of the Big March. This is a weird one. So we can reveal 1 level 7 or higher beast type monster from our hand. So right now that'd be Elephant. And, you know, spoiler alert, Meeg is in this box, so it'll be that. Excavate the top 3 cards of our deck. We can special summon up to 2 excavated level 4 or lower beast type monsters to your field in face down defense position, send the remaining cards to the graveyard. So basically it gets us tribute fodder. It's probably going to be the best way to think about this card. It's okay. If we're really trying to force Meeg as a deck, then this would probably maybe go in, but it depends if we want to go all in on the beasts. We'll have to wait and see. Then we have Crusher Drone. This is a card I've never really been a huge fan of. If we have another face-up Earth Attribute Machine, so it's really a bit of a weird stipulation, we can send the top 2 cards of our deck to the graveyard. Okay, that's fine. Gains 400 attack, so it goes up to 16, so it will clear 15s. I mean, if you want to just turbo a bunch of cards into the graveyard, it's okay, but 1200 attack is not great, and 16 is like fine, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Then we get to Urukai Planao. So if we have a face-up beast-type normal monster on a field, we can set a Meat and Greed or Iroquois Grudges from your graveyard into your spell and trap zone. Then if we have a face-up Magical Sheep Girl Meeg-chan on your field, we can gain 600 life points. The cards you get back with us, we'll go through them as we kind of get to them, but this card is not fantastic, but like it is part of the Meeg archetype, and I expect we're going to get a lot more of the Meeg cards. Speaking of which, Magical Sheep Girl Meeg-chan is here, 2500 attack, level 7. We can summon it off of Secret Order, so it's going to be a Secret Order deck, I suppose. On its own, it doesn't really do a lot. It has a bunch of support cards, such as our Iwakai Planao, and we're going to see more as we go through. I would like this card to be good. I would have liked this card to get its own unique skill, but we don't live in a perfect timeline, so I suppose. But I suppose it's fine. We already knew we were getting Strange Traveler. We already knew about Meteor Charge. We already knew about Crayon. Next up, we have Cork Trooper. So 1400 attack, pretty good attack stat. Obviously not 15, but still pretty good. If we have no other monsters on our field, and your opponent has 2 or less spell traps on the field, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of spell traps on their field. So this is a little bit of burn. This did actually see a little bit of play in Earth Machine Burn. It's not fantastic, but I guess if you do get 600 damage in, that is 10% of your opponent's life, so that's okay. Obviously, we can't use this twice in one turn without some shenanigans, but, you know, Cork Trooper. Then we have the Execute Fermi. We already knew about this card. Ozone Layer, we already knew about this card. We've already talked about Sora Puyo. Then we get to Universe Dia. So we can send 1 card from our hand to the graveyard. 1 face-up monster in your opponent's field loses 800 attack to the end of this turn. Then if we send the Galactica normal monster to the graveyard, we can gain 800 life points. So this card is not great. The issue it has is it's level 7. It only has 2200 attack. And in order to use its effect to allow it to beat other things, we have to lose a card from our hand. I do not really like this card. I don't expect this card to see any play, but we'll have to wait and see. Then there's Meat and Greed. We can send 2 cards from our hand to the graveyard. 1 face-up beast-type normal monster on your field can make 3 attacks on monsters this turn, so actually something that works quite well with Meeg. Then if we have a face-up magical sheep girl Meeg-chan on our field, we can make all face-up effect monsters on your opponent's field lose 500 attack. So this potentially could be a finisher if your opponent hasn't got any live back row and your opponent leaves 3 monsters in attack mode, and ideally they're all effect monsters, and the other 2 monsters ideally we get out are also going to be kind of big, like, I don't know, Gazelle, the King of Mythical Beasts, or something, so we can get him for like 3000 attack afterwards. Then this card could actually do stuff, but I guess you should look at this like the Noodle Art of Roastery, where it's like, again, if everything goes well, you can just win the game off it. If it doesn't, it doesn't really do anything. We've already talked about Safer, we've already knew that Galactic Force was coming, and then we get to Iwakai Grudges from the Grave. So I misread this card when I talked about this before when I was doing predictions. This card actually makes your monster lose the 2000 attack, which I should remember because I've actually used this card in the past and found that out the hard way at that time as well. But this card is not very good. We could still use this card to give ourselves a ton of cards into our hand, which gives us a lot of resources, but we have to survive that turn, and it also puts us on the back foot because we're basically just going to take a ton of damage. So realistically, Grudges from the Grave is not particularly good. And then the other cards in here, Milky Wave Neo, we got Carpendra, Jointech Ace, Vortex Shooter, and Bright Center. We kind of either knew or kind of assumed we get in this. This might be the first actual confirmation of Jointech Ace, I can't recall, but we basically expected we were going to get this card, right? But yeah, this box is very, very exciting. I think Secret Order is probably going to be a must-have 3 of if you're planning to play any kind of normal level 7. It's just that good. This card is like format warping. We'll have to see if this card actually ends up being as strong as it was in the physical game. Either way, just a 1 card get out a big boss monster that has 3200 attack and protection from traps for the turn is really, really strong. The Bluetooth Burst, I don't think is going to be super useful yet, but will be better later. Jointech Rex, amazing card. Again, with no restrictions on it, this card could be really, really strong. It would be interesting to see where this goes. Because what I'm actually a bit worried about is the Light Machine deck as we have it now. I believe you could just play Jointech Rex in that, or you could put 3 copies of Secret Order in and then just go all in on 3 copies of Tough Striker and then just have that as like an extra thing you can do, which just seems really, really strong. So we're gonna have to see how this looks going forward when we actually get to cook and we actually get to play with these cards, but this is a little bit scary. And finally, we'll talk about a few of the other cards that we got to see during the show match during the stream. So first one was Fortitude Dragon. Because this isn't any of the boxes, we can only assume this is going to be a Yuamu level up reward, which is an interesting choice. But it's a 900 attack, 1100 defense dragon. Send the top card of the deck to the graveyard. 1 face-up monster with 2000 or more attack on your opponent's field loses 400 attack until the end of this turn. Then you can set a Dragon's Fortitude from your graveyard to your spell and trap zone. We already know that Dragon's Fortitude is limited 1. It's okay. Just reduce attack, get to recycle the traps, kind of a +1. It's okay. We'll have to wait and see. The next card we saw was what we again are going to assume is a Yuhi level up reward, and this is Steel Steed Martin Vinery. So we did talk about this a little bit when we talked about Toceratops in a previous video, but toss a coin any number of times equal to the number of face-up monsters on your opponent's field. If at least one of the results is heads, this card can attack twice. If 3 of the results are heads, which is almost never going to happen, he inflicts piercing damage as well. Realistically, this is going to be able to attack twice. And then if we do get the tails and we have this in defense, so if it's already survived the turn, I suppose we could use it, gain it, attack. I don't know if this card's going to be particularly good. but we can play it alongside Triceratops and just play it in the coin flippy deck and probably have fun with it, so it's pretty cool. Then the last card we saw was Cosmo Titan, which again we're going to assume is a UDS level up reward, just a 2300 attack, level 7, probably never going to see play because it's already been power crept with other cards. But that is going to be it for the video. We've gone over some of these really cool cards. Some of them look very, very strong. Some of them I kind of wish there was a bit more support for. We're going to have to wait and see when we actually get a hold of these cards. And we do also know that we're going to be getting yugioh. I believe it was on the 4th of October we're going to be getting that event. So we're going to start getting him and the rest of his Metarian support. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.